what all would you even have to do to get into like a Comic Con or even like a Schomburg?
Yeah, no, well, I'm gonna tell. Now, there was another comic book convention that I wanted to get into just because of the timing, right? And it was one that was in a predominantly Caucasian area. And they told me, what I wanted to do was just put an ad on like one of the billboards or one of the ad spaces,
Mhm.
and they were like, "You're too late." And it was like a month, 2 months out. I said, "Wait a minute, you're turning down advertising dollars.
Right.
I'm not asking for a booth. I'm not asking for any of that. But you don't have any place where you can put this chocolate Amazonian sister up.
Yeah.
Nowhere, nowhere. You can't do that nowhere." But anyway, to answer your question, they actually have the applications that are on their websites, and you can fill out the application, for it. Usually, if you get it in time, they'll have space, for you for a booth, not an
Mhm.
ad. But they'll have you'll have plenty of time to get a booth, pay the money. They send you
Got
over all the information. But what I will say, a big heads up, what they're going to give you is very, very minimal. They're going to give you
it.
a table and they're going to give you a generic sign. So make
Like
sure
they'll put you in the back.
that's right. You got to have that pop. You got to have that pop when you go to Comic Con. So I was supposed to do the one at the California African American Museum, but
Okay.
they postponed. And I was ready, so I went and got my, all of my collateral materials together, my banners, everything. QR codes are also very important if you have digital product as well. I tell everybody that so they can get more or they can come back and find out more information. So that's probably the signing up part is the easy part, making sure
Mhm.
that your booth is fly. That's different.
Yeah, like you mentioned the QR code, like it seems like such a not daunting, but just like a layered undertaking now because if you want to create something, you do have to consider the digital aspect. And I didn't even think about QR codes. I'm here thinking about like getting it on a tablet or something like that.
Right,
Uh,
right, right. Yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, like, I had even thought about going strictly digital, there, just having like all of the signs up everywhere with the QR codes. So you could immediately go in, download it, and then you can read it right there. You don't have to add more to your backpack, you can just roll with it. But I did get some hard copies made. But I think that's a good way to go. Is just to have even if people they might be in a rush, they might not have time at that moment to stop by your booth. So then they can just scan the QR code, and then they've already visited your booth.
You about your setup because it looks to me like you're completely independent. Like you don't have like I know authors can go to Amazon, right, to help sell their books, but it looks like you're completely independent, like on YouTube. And
Absolutely.
wow, that's a lot. Specifically with the animation, can you talk about like the process of like one finding an illustrator and then finding an animator on top of that and the voices and getting like the whole project like
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. But I'm feeling real militant today, right? So I'm gonna tell you guys that straight up. And so when I first started, working with Califia, and then too, it's this Califia, just to give a heads up, it is for adults who like comics. So don't give this to the kids, otherwise they're gonna see some blood, some cussing, and a little bit of nudity. So let me just say that first off. But when we had the PG, version, Amazon took me through so many changes, and you guys see how high quality, the product, is. They took me through so many changes behind getting the book up there, and I was like, forget this nonsense. I'm gonna work really hard, and I'm gonna do it myself. Just to give you a little background. I started out in entertainment, and I'm still in entertainment.
yeah.
And so I had a bunch of friends in the entertainment industry, and then also some other friends in graphic design. And one of my boys, he's a designer, and he had a nephew that was straight out of animation college, right?
Okay.
And I was actually inspired by, I think it was a Spider-Woman motion comic that was on
Mhm.
Marvel. I mean, that was on YouTube. And I was like, I might be able to do this for Califia. And then so I talked to him, and he was originally just talking about doing the comic. And I said, wait a minute, do you think you can do a motion comic? He was like, yeah, it's just like an animatic. And I said, okay, cool. And then so, of course, now I believe in paying folks for their work. And
Mhm.
so I commissioned him to do the animation for the motion comic. And if you don't know what a motion comic is, it's basically a comic book with some animation elements. And
Mhm.
then Sean Hawkins is his name, and he did a phenomenal job on the animation and then also the artwork. And then when it came to the voice actors, I basically just start hitting up friends that has some name recognition and have been in
Oh,
some projects. Hey, what's up? You want to do this animation project? Well, I've never done animation before. Or I just started doing voiceovers or whatever. And then Rockman Dunbar is also a very good friend of mine. And I was like, hey, Rock, you want to, slap your name on this? Come out. He said, I've never done animation before. I said, okay, I'll have an AD that has a background in animation come in and help you with the voices. And his input was invaluable, along with Chris. Oh God, he's gonna kill me. Can't think of Chris's last name right now. But Chris, who was also our AD. And then the studio that we used, one of my other friends, her cousin, who I've known for years, right? She's like, we were talking one day right as I was doing Califia. She said, oh, I manage an animation studio over
mhm.
in the Valley. For those of you who don't know, that's San
Mhm.
Fernando Valley. And I was just like, really? And then I looked it up, and it was one of the largest one of the largest voiceover companies in the city. They've done work with DC, a lot of video game companies. And so, it was just definitely divine and destined for this to happen and for it to happen the way that it did, because all of the pieces just fell together.
Nice. And I want to go into your background a little bit.
Yes.
So I want to see if what I read was accurate. Like I read, you're a journalist, host, writer, producer. So like TV, film production, all of that is accurate, right?
That's
Okay.
correct.
So
Yes.
tell me a little bit about your background and like.
So I've been interested in entertainment my entire life, and in some way or another have always had an imprint in the comic book world. And so they were always my escape from whatever was going on. And they also kind of spawned my creativity. They were
Mhm.
my outlet in a lot of ways, for that. And so I actually started out in front of the camera. I was a model many moons ago, and then decided to do a little bit of acting, and then went to UCLA, got my degree in communications, and that led to me working in PR. And I worked in PR for years, for years, for years, for years. And then I was making everybody else like all of this money, thousands and millions of dollars with their brands. And I said, okay, Keith, you need to come up with your own brand. And
Mhm.
being from California, I had heard this story about this Nubian Amazon queen that the state of California was named after. And so I did some more research, on her, and found out that she was originally in a book called the Adventures of Esplandian, which was a Spanish novel, and just an obscure, minor character. And I believe in, even if you're doing alternate fiction or alternate history, which is our genre, you still
Mhm.
have to stick somewhat close to
Mhm.
the source material. And so I didn't like the ending of the story. It was it
Okay.
was it was some colonization mess, and so I flipped it, where it was the ending was the same, but something added to it, to the story. And then she needed a crew to roll with. And so I took some other diverse characters from also from classic literature, threw them
Mhm.
up in the mix, put them in a place where they could all exist together. And then we have Califia in the time of the century. So comic books have always been a big part, and animation, a big part of my journey, especially even as I became an adult, because I've always had to be such a, as being independent, a very focused businessman. And so
Mhm.
that has always been my escape and kind of the inspiration behind my creative process.
Nice. And you mentioned that, there are some real life elements steeped into the comic. Tell me about some of Califia's adventures.
Yeah. Well, if you want to go from the original book, basically it was a. Tell me if this sounds familiar. All right, but remember, Califia's story was written back in the 1400s.
Okay.
Story of this soldier in Califia, Muslim,
Mhm.
and they were fighting against the Spaniards for religious freedom. And so he had heard about this island of these Amazon women. And so he went to her and asked her for help. And she
Mhm.
was a young queen and, kind of bored and, wanted adventure and thrills. And so she said, okay, cool. I'll go over there and I'll take my Amazons and our griffins. Those are like half birds, half lions that
Yeah.
be bred for battle, and they went on over to Constantinople to fight the Spaniards with the Muslims, right? So where it flipped is that the Griffins didn't know the difference between Spaniards and Muslims. They just
Mm.
knew the difference between male and female. So they
Mhm.
started wiping out all the men, just killing them, right? And so it got to a standstill. And so they decided that the battle would come down to 2-on-2 combat. So you had this Muslim leader and Califia against the king, Amadis, and his son, Esplandian. So in the book, because Esplandian, this European man, was just so beautiful and fine, Califia got distracted in the battle, and then she lost, right?
Okay.
And so then she didn't even end up getting him. She ended up getting with his husband, and then they came back to the Isle of California, colonized it, populated it with a bunch of mulatto babies, and that was the end of the story. And I was like, nah, no, no, no. This woman, that would not have been the end. So all I'm going to say is, because I do want everybody to read the book, on their way back to California when they almost hit the island, Amistad happened. That's the flip
Oh,
you
okay.
know, that I
Okay.
did. And the story, the overarching story, takes place in Lemuria, which is also from classic literature. And in our story, it is a place where time, space, science, and sorcery that they intermingle, and so everyone there, they live forever. But the real secret is why. Why is it happening?
That is cool. And I love that the main character is this like beautiful brown skin chocolate queen.
Yes,
I feel like we don't
absolutely.
see that anymore.
No, no, and then and being the lead and the lead of
Yeah.
this team, and who I was paralleling was Wonder Woman. The story of Wonder how it actually started. But this book was with, and I think that Charles Malton probably read Esplandian and got inspiration for
Mhm.
Wonder Woman from Califia's story. So sometimes people will say to me, "Oh, she like a black Wonder Woman, and she's like Nubian." I'm like, no,
Yeah.
Califia originated a whole lot before that. And so yeah,
Yeah.
so it's a really cool story. I'm very, very proud of it. I'm very proud of Califia, and I wanted to make sure that even like sometimes like when different artists are rendering, Califia, people
Mhm.
always want to try to lean and lighten her up. And I'm like, no, no, no. Uh-uh.
Mhm.
I need her to be Hershey Brown. That's where
Mhm.
that's where she needs to be. And that's how she's described in the original book. If they say that she was this tall, bodacious, dark African queen, the darkest of all of them. I mean, there's no way around that.
Right. Yeah, like when you look at like comic book history and even like TV film, history. Like Black women have been done so dirty, like in Marvel comics, like the original, like Monica Rambeau, or like the
Yes.
original
Yeah.
Miss Marvel. And it's like the character existed, and then it was just like, I guess they could, I don't know if they couldn't find the writers or whatever, and then it was just like, okay, well, we're just gonna not write the character anymore, or we're gonna write her out, or you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
even in movies, like there was that period of time, like in the '70s, where you saw like Cleopatra Jones or like the Foxy
Yes.
Brown films and stuff like that.
Right.
I feel like it's all connected, but I love this sort of resurgence of seeing Black women as heroes.
That's right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah,
So
it's funny
no,
that you mentioned Monica Rambeau because the same thing kind of happened to her, and she was the original female Captain Marvel.
mhm,
For whatever reason, they changed her name to Photon and gave it to supposedly the son of the original Marvel. Then all of a sudden, it ended up being
mhm,
Miss Marvel became Captain Marvel, which is the version that we know today. I'm glad that in the new movie, which I haven't seen, of course, they're at least giving tribute, to that character and have a
right,
brown skinned sister playing it with natural hair.
right,
Yes,
yes,
yes.
awesome. And so, what are your plans for rolling out Califia and the Timeless Centuries? Like, do you have anything major coming up?
Yeah, so we have well, there's always something happening with
Mhm.
Califia. So on the site, we actually have a total of 4 issues now. The first one is our zero, that's our prequel issue. And then issue 1 of the comic book is actually an alternate version of the motion comic. And
Okay.
so it's a little different, y'all. So if you get the motion comic, it's not going to be because that was on YouTube, so we had to keep that PG. This one is a little bit more raw, and then we have a tie-in book called Timeless Centuries Beyond Lemuria, and the focus of Beyond Lemuria is people who actually escaped from Lemuria, classic characters, and so their descendants have been trying to figure out what has been happening and why people have been getting transported there. That's probably my new favorite is
Okay.
Timeless Centuries Beyond Lemuria. And then we have our issue 2 of Califia and the Timeless Centuries, which brings us back to Califia's story and kind of unraveling more of the mystery. I also have plans for Califia to be full animation and the
Mhm.
possibility of doing something live action. On our website, Califia Comics, we have plenty of merch. We have t-shirts there, caps, a few other things, posters, and where you can get a more in-depth, you can get more in-depth information on the characters.
Nice. And I have to correct myself because I've been saying Califia. It's Califia. Califia in the Timeless Centuries.
Yes,
So,
Califia. It sounded like you were saying it right to me. So yeah,
okay.
Califia and the time, the century. Some spellings have it as Calafia, Calafia or Calafia. But I went Califia. I don't know. It just resonated more, with me.
Hmm.
Yes.
Nice. And you have other projects as well, like Black in the Green Room. Tell me
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah, Black in the Green Room. I'm always about positivity. So I also write for the Los Angeles Sentinel newspaper, which is one of the oldest Black-owned newspapers in the country, and their companion newspaper, the LA Watts Times. And I
Mhm.
was interviewing Tavis Smiley, who you all know, and Tavis Smiley. We did a very hardcore, interview with him, and as I was interviewing him about his new radio station,
Mhm.
KBLA Talk 1580, which just celebrated its second anniversary. And we were sitting there, and he was like, "You know what? You need to be working for me." And
Hmm.
he said, "You're really good at this." And so he didn't know that I'd done a little radio in the past. So we were sitting there and we were talking, and I was like, "Well, maybe I want to produce." And he was like, "No, you need to host. I don't have an entertainment show. Your background's in entertainment. Let's do that." And I said, "Well, I don't want to do gossip. No hate on anybody that does that. But if I'm going to talk to people and you get some tea, you're going to get it straight from them, not because of
Mhm.
what I think or somebody else said. So I
Right.
wanted the focus to be more on information. Yeah, we're going to have some celebrities on the show, but what I also want is some people who are working behind the scenes as well, just so
Mhm.
Black folks can see that there are more options in entertainment than just being entertainers. And then for those who are interested in production or whatever, about like how to protect yourself, the right ways to pitch and
Mhm.
various subjects like that. And the name came about because of my background in PR. Because all I remember was back in the green room, like when you had the celebrities back there or whoever, that's
Yeah.
where you really that was the real interview, was
Yeah.
back there, back in the green room. And so of course, Black in the green room. And it's been fantastic. We've had some great guests, on there. We've gotten some great feedback, and I think the guests are very trusting of the platform because they know our goal is not to attack them. Our goal is to entertain and to educate. So to edutain is what our
Nice.
goal is on Black in the
I love
Green.
that word. Yeah. I feel like there's not enough edutainment. Like everything is kind of leaning toward like just gossip and fluff and
Yeah.
no real facts, no real substance.
Yes, absolutely, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. And I think there's a place, for it. And when you're a public figure, you put yourself under that public, eye. But I think too, people who want more, who really and want something just positive. I'm not going to say clean because I don't believe in passing judgments, but want something that's positive and inspirational and beneficial. Then Black in the Green Room is here for you.
Awesome. And of course, since I have you here, got to talk about the different strikes that have been going on, right? Like, so
Yeah.
we know the writers' strike. I guess they got to a place where they felt like they're satisfied with the negotiations, but the
Yes.
actors' strike is still going on. I actually have a series on AURN's Instagram where I interview different creatives and
Oh, nice.
I chatted with two actresses, Karen Ward Ross and Kalila Joy, and they've been in a few things. They might not necessarily be like household names, but you definitely seen them
Yeah,
and stuff.
absolutely. No, I get it.
And they were talking about like just the basic demands of one wanting to get paid a livable wage and to be able to get residuals of their work, and then of course now in the digital age you have AI, which has been
Right.
posing some challenges. But we also talked about like independence and how now people are you can put stuff out on a YouTube page and build your audience that way. And in a lot of ways, this is something that you're doing. You're kind of like in between two worlds. But I'm wondering like, how can the worlds kind of collide in some ways? Because sometimes you have people who put stuff out on YouTube and then they get investors and then it makes its way to TV or film. Like, how do these two worlds, how can we do this ethically in a way that supports everyone involved?
Yeah, I think if you're speaking from independently producing, like I did with Califia, or say, with Issa Rae and Awkward
Mhm.
Black Girl, I think that people want to see. I'm trying to answer both of your questions.
Yeah, I
People
know.
want to see you invest in yourself. You
Mhm.
know, I got $5,000 from a friend of mine for Califia, and the rest came out of my pocket. And
Mhm.
so people want to see you invest in yourself. And then from there, expanding beyond that, yeah, you have to create those relationships, and there has to be, that relationship there with mainstream media. Now, let me tell you this: we are a powerful people, and we are full of resources. And this is not to say that we need to separate ourselves from anyone, but it's just to understand that everything that we need to have our own distribution companies, our own production companies, that we have those things within us and within our power. And that we
Mhm.
have to understand that we are not just good enough, we are great enough to do those things. And so I think once we get to that point, mainstream will meet independent Black producers. In the meantime, because we are under the system, of the strikes and the AMPTP, just pay people fairly, treat them fairly, make sure that you got some people on deck that can do hair and makeup for a broad spectrum of complexions and hair textures. Just simple things like that. If these people are making you, what is it, $300 billion collectively, a year, treat the writers and treat the actors right. But just always keep in the back of your mind, though, when you have those opportunities to work with people, collaborate with people, and then those of you who are already in the game, and I'm not just talking about in entertainment, in real estate or law, development, you have the money to help to support and to broaden our influence in entertainment. And so just collectively, I think that's just a way for us to go, to kind of merge the two together and bring Black independence into the mainstream.
Awesome. That was a great answer. I love watching creators who do their own thing sort of take those steps up. Like Issa Rae, I was watching Issa Rae when she was on YouTube doing Awkward.
Yes,
like I interviewed
absolutely.
her back then, right? Like before she made it to HBO
Right.
and all that stuff. So that was cool. I look forward to looking at more of what's coming with Califia and the Timeless Centuries. There's a show that I used to watch called Money and Violence. It was on YouTube.
Right.
It was so funny because like the creator, he definitely bootstrapped it. Like he really worked with what he had, and it may not have looked the best, but you saw the vision, and it got to a point where he did get an investor. Jay-Z actually invested in it, and so that was cool to kind of watch that progression. So I love watching creators just work with what they have and tap into their resources, like what you did. Like you have creative friends who are willing to help you. That's so cool.
It was real guerrilla, and people sometimes still ask why the mouth don't move, and I'm like, I'm the character, and I'm just like, hey, come on and invest. We'll make the mouth.
Right.
But it's a motion.
The vision. The mouth might not move, but you see the vision. You see
exactly. There you go. Right.
No, I like it. It's good. It's good. But that was pretty much it for my questions. Anything you want to add? Where can people find you?
Oh, okay. Please, on Instagram, follow me at UMA Worldwide. UMA Worldwide. That's the name of my parent company. And then on Instagram, UMA Worldwide. And then on Facebook, you can find me at Keith L.Underwood.
Okay.
And we don't do that other.
Okay. I got it.
Right.
That the Bird app formerly known as.
Right, exactly. Right. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate it.